So far, they have no information.
Get down on the ground! Get down on the ground! Get down!
Two separate occasions within a matter of weeks, chaos at two of the nation's busiest airports, both thanks to false reports. Those incidents in New York and Los Angeles, raising fears of big security flaws at our nation's airports. So how prepared are police when it comes to dealing with terrorism? Here to weigh in, former military intelligence officer for the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force, Steve Rogers. Steve, good morning to you. We were just talking about this. Oftentimes, airports have their local police departments that work for the airports, essentially, that are the first responders. Explain how that works.
All right. When there is an alarm going off, such as a possible terrorist attack, the police they send tactical units in to suppress any enemy. Okay. So in other words, they're well trained to deal with that. The police are. The problem we're facing is in these cases in L.A. and in New York, when the alarm was set off, when someone called 911 and said they heard shots fired. What in the world happened? Complete and total chaos.
And why?
Well, there's no one in the airport that can tell people where to go, what to do, where do you run. Look, I was at Kennedy Airport 3 weeks ago.
Hold on. We've got the first line of defense, and that is the local police force. In New York, for example, it's called the Port Authority.
Yes.
In Milwaukee, Wisconsin, it would be Milwaukee's airport-owned police security force. That's the first line of defense.
First line of defense.
And they're well-trained, you say.
Well-trained.
What you are talking about, then, is the second or third line, which could be customs officers, it could be ICE agents, it could be store clerks. Is that right?
Your first line of defense should be the police officers and law enforcement in the buildings, in the terminals. As I was sharing with you before, 3 weeks ago, I'm in Kennedy Airport for 4 hours, upstairs, downstairs, near the departure gates, near the arrival gates. I did not see one uniformed police officer. I was looking around. I did ask some questions to some people that were there, that worked there. What happens if there's a fire? What happens if there's a possible terrorist attack? One person laughed at me. I'm talking about employees. They are not trained to deal with this threat. Our government's failure to deal with this threat is setting up soft targets.
I just want to be clear. The police are well trained.
Yes.
It's a second, third, fourth line of folks who are working there at the airport that don't have a clue where the exits are in some cases and all of that.
Exactly right. But keep in mind, you're talking about the police being the first line of defense. What I'm sharing with you is that your real first line of defense are the people who work in the airport to tell you where to go, where to run, where to hide. Okay? Look, it's going to take time for the police to get there. They get there within a reasonable amount of time. But what happens in those 2 or 3 minutes? A lot of people could be killed. And let me add this. There was a stampede in L.A. There was a stampede in New York. Those things need to be prevented. And the way you prevent them is you train the people in the airport that work there to get you out.
And Steve, what's surprising is that folks who work in big office buildings or factories, wherever, they go through training in terms of fire drills and all that. You're telling me that airport workers and people there don't?
We go through training in elementary and junior high school for fire drills. But I could tell you this. You go to Port Authority in New York, the bus terminal, there are armed police officers there. There are some military people there at times. There are dogs. That was another thing. I didn't see any canine units in the airport. If somebody walked in with explosives, how on earth are you going to prevent these things from happening?
Why is that?
I'll tell you why. What I believe it is.
Yeah.
Our government leaders can't come to the reality that we are at war. And when you're at war, you take every single measure for force protection to protect the people. I think they're just falling asleep on this, and God forbid we get hit, because if we get hit, it's going to be hard.
Well, 15 years after 9/11, I guess we've let up. And you know, you do notice, and I'm sure a lot of our viewers have as well, when you pull up to the airport in your car, they let you kind of linger for a bit. It used to not be like that.
You could linger. You could do whatever you want. And one more thing. Was this probing us? Were our enemies probing us through these false alarms? We'll see.
Oh, good point. Okay, so know where the exits are, at least if you're a passenger, somebody traveling through. Steve Rogers, great to see you, and thank you for your service
You're
to our
welcome.
country and
Thank
keeping
you.
us safe. Well,